Hi everyone. I hope you guys had a great week in the markets this week. A couple people were asking to see more examples of how I trade using my system and my indicators. So I'm going to go through some examples here. Now, for full clarity and for full transparency, I want to tell you that this is one of the better weeks I've had because this week, later on in the week, it was pretty much just straight up. It was very hard to lose in a trending market when you're betting long. Uh, so that's something I want to clarify. Not every week is straight up or straight down, and sometimes there's choppy ranges. Uh, but I want to show how my trades worked and how I took advantage of the uptrend. So I'm going to start off on Monday of this week. So we started off, we had a choppy open. Now, you may be saying, why don't we take a short here or a long here, right, in this area? Well, if we look down here at the trend strength visualizer, there is pretty much no bias compared to, for example, for right here, there's strong bullish bias, or right here, strong bearish bias, right? So there's no bias right here, so there's no point playing the band. The same thing right here, there's no bias down here. It's as close to zero bias as it can be. Now, when we look here, this is actually the, I think, no, it's just one of two trades I took that day. This trade right here, we have something interesting. We have growing bearish bias, and we've got a strong amount of bearish bias. It doesn't look as strong because you see, obviously, it has a huge amount of bearish strength down here. But if you're only looking at this, which is what pretty much all that you could see before this happened, it was very large. So I took a short position when it tapped this, when I started to see it. It was somewhere around here, and my stop loss was in this previous range of consolidation. But I got it essentially when it started to come back beneath the band. And then my target on trades like this on taps of the band is usually equal lows or equal highs. I took this down to equal lows, and then this candle in the middle of it, it went sort of like this, and then back down. So I got trailing stopped here for a pretty decent profit. Now, if we look towards the end of the day, there's another trade I took, and this trade is pretty simple. I saw the cloud. The cloud is extremely thick, which indicates that there's a lot of sellers. And I took a short since I saw it rejecting off the cloud. It had pushed up to this. It was a big red bar like this, but then it started to wick down to here, and that's when I got in. And I took that pretty much to close. I took it literally to the last minute. Now, another thing you guys might be interested in seeing, this right here, you can see the band. You might be like, why isn't it bouncing off the band? Well, there's a very simple way to view this that will help you to not take poor trades or to help see potentially better trades. So we can see right here, it's not bouncing off the band at all, right? And we can see here, it's bouncing off the band quite a bit. The difference is right here, there's very little bias. You see how small this is? There's practically nothing down here. So there's very little bias, which means we don't want to bet bullish and we don't really want to bet bearish. However, when this happens, this is a break of liquidity. You could have bet long here. I just personally didn't that day. All right, I'm going to move on to the next day. All right, this day started off pretty beautiful. So we can see that we start off in the morning at the open and we have a break of the cloud. So we might be saying, well, we had previously on the previous day a break of the cloud and a huge reversal. So why don't we play short here? Well, the difference is this cloud is extremely thin. And if we go back to the previous cloud, this cloud is extremely thick. So this cloud is indicating that there are a lot of buyers here and they are very strong. Whereas this cloud over here is indicating that there are very few sellers and they are very weak. So we don't want to bet against the buyers when there are very few sellers and they're very weak, right? That's essentially what the cloud is telling you here. Now, we can see again here, you could have got entries here. These would be perfectly valid. I just did not. On this candle that wicked down, I got in because I like to, what I like to do, this isn't something on the indicators, but this is just something from personal preference, is if there's a range forming, I like to look for the break of the range and then I retrace into it for a better entry. Now I took this tap because it broke under, and then of course we have extremely strong extremely strong bullish strength here, as well as the band tap, right? And then we also have very few sellers. So this was a pretty easy equal high trade. I marked it wrong. I got stop lossed on this candle around here when it broke beneath this candle. Now I had another trade later in the day, and this trade was actually a kind of sketchy trade. This was my worst one of the day. This usually has lower odds. So you can see right here, and you look down, and the strength is pretty weak. This trade was actually a bad trade by me. However, it worked out, but a trade working out is not necessarily the factor of whether the trade is good or not. It is more so a factor of luck, right? And the strategy can work, the strategy cannot work, but this wasn't according to the strategy. This was more so luck. This one was according to strategy. Now, if we move on to the next day, let's see some more examples. So this right here, this open, well, this wasn't open. This candle at 9, I believe, was news, and it had a breakout here. This is the same principle that I talked about earlier, where the cloud is very thick and it breaks out. That means that there are a lot of sellers, so it's probably going to reverse. You can take this and you can play it as a reversal to the band. I didn't take it because it went way too fast for me, and I have a rule against playing moves like that. However, when it tapped the band later, about 30 minutes later, I took a long. And I took a long here for the simple reason that there's a lot of bullish strength and it tapped the band. I got in right when this green candle started coming back up because I like to see at least a little bit of confirmation. Sometimes I jump before, but I like to see a little bit of confirmation. Now, I had no more trades until the end of the day over here. This was, I think, in the evening, actually. Yeah, it was in the evening. We had an instant pull down all the way to the band, a tap pretty much one tick off of the band, and then a pump up. I caught this, and then I got trailing stopped right here. Now, if we move on to the next day, we can see some more examples. This is the last day. This is Friday. I did not perform so well today. So right here, this trade right here, this is what I was supposed to do. This is what my actual target is. However, in reality, my trade looked more so like this, and I got stop lossed out right here because I was being greedy and I did not exit at my target and I did not trail my stop loss down. So I ended up having a trade that was like, I think it was 4 or 5 points in the profit at some points, and then to 2 points loss. Yeah, it was a brutal trade. It was a lack of discipline. Uh, However, earlier in the day, there were some valid concepts you could do. At 7:30 in the morning, there was again that same concept of the thick cloud, a break, and then a reversal. That's something that you can play, and you can see that's pretty consistent as a theme across all of these days. Now, during this day, after this failed short that I took, which was a valid entry, but I just messed it up. Now, after this failed short, we can see a common thing. The trend strength is trending upwards. So that means that the bulls are continually gaining more and more control. We can see it's almost like a stock chart itself. It's trending. Now that's implying that the bulls are continually getting stronger, and we can see a bull run as we do this day. So when I saw this, and then I saw the trending upward strength, I looked for an entry on the tap right here. On this tap right here, I got an entry, and I played it to essentially equal highs. And I got out at equal highs, and those were my only two trades of this day. Now, there were trades later in the day that you could have also taken. For example, these two you can take because there's strong bullish strength. This one is a little weaker, but it's still pretty strong. And you can take these to equal highs. You can take it further even here, but the target that I personally prefer is equal highs. I hope you guys have had a wonderful week, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.